Hello world, and just David here to talk about the upcoming Airplay panel on GamerGate. Micheal Koretzky, and I'll be calling him Michael to avoid butchering his last name, is putting it together. So let's lead off with, I think that GamerGate should do this. Even if Micheal turned out to be outlandishly anti-GamerGate, I wouldn't change my stance. First, I don't think this could hurt GamerGate any more than we have ever been hurt before. Sure, it could set things back, but we can recover once again. The thing to keep in mind is that every time we get neutral coverage, we win. Doubt of the narrative is our ally. The results of a potential win here are also worth the risk of losing ground we've already won. Also, the pro GamerGate panelists that have been selected to receive the invitations are smart, capable, and adaptive people. The list of potential panelists are Micheal Koretzky, Brad Wardell, Kathy Young, Christina Hoff-Sommers, Oliver Campbell, Mark Sebb, William Usher, and Jennifer Daw. The people I'm most familiar with are Micheal Koretzky, Brad Wardell, Christina Hoff-Sommers, and Oliver Campbell. If you know these people, I would hope you can put some faith in the idea that they, out of anyone, could handle a live panel that's geared to create yet another false narrative. Especially if you follow Oliver Campbell. This is his thing. He wants to own this. If you can give him some faith, that would be awesome. The opportunity to try this, even though it could be risky, is absolutely worth it to him. The next thing I want to address is the reaction a lot of people had to Micheal and Airplay after the last update. Update number 4. Before I get to the update itself, I want to say something that people are probably going to consider hyperbolic, but I firmly believe. GamerGate has been bullied and abused for months and months on end. Even before GamerGate, as gamers, we were seeing some of this. Gamers are entitled, they're whiny hyper-consumers, things like that. Abuse is one of the most insidious and damaging things one can visit upon a person. It is very prone to self-perpetuating itself, too, turning those exposed to abuse into abusers or victims. I find it very easy to see this as the behavior of these radical feminists and social justice warriors that we've been dealing with. Some of the reaction to the last Airplay update, and the reaction to some of Michael's comments, while justified in several cases, reminds me of the abuse-driven behavior I see in anti-GamerGate. I do not want to see us acting like them. One of the reasons I hoisted the flag of GamerGate is to oppose letting behavior like that go unchallenged. Now to what I believe kicked off the initial doubt of Michael's intentions. In the update number 4, he said, "If any Airplay panelist starts a sentence like this, and I can't imagine they will, I'll shut them down before they finish it. What happened to Zoe Quinn was terrible, but..." End quote. From the GamerGate side of things, that's kind of worrying to hear. We've suffered people controlling the narrative for a long time, and that's the kind of thing we've heard from people doing that. I think this is more good intentions put badly by someone who doesn't quite understand everything that's happened. Keep in mind that Micheal is doing other things besides setting up Airplay or researching GamerGate. To my understanding, he isn't even looking into this as a journalist. He's looking into it to try and moderate a panel on it. And he's putting the panel together for the convention. There's a lot of work in and of itself. Expecting perfection from him will do nothing but disappoint you. However, that said, the statement was followed up later by another one that, from a GamerGate perspective, is a much more damning statement. In a tweet to Mike Kern, Micheal said, "You're right, Mark. If a GG panelist wants to explain why Zoe Quinn deserved harassing, I'll let them. Should be fascinating." I think this was the full-on panic stop moment. This is almost verbatim the kind of thing Anti has said to try and stop people from listening to us, to convince them that we're just harassers and that we aren't worth listening to in the first place. The one-sided media narrative they've painted hinges upon statements and accusations like that working to silence us. I'm still willing to give the benefit of the doubt here, personally. The way people were reacting could look pretty odd and confusing. This could have been something that was said off the cuff by someone who doesn't, yet again, understand everything that's been going on. And again, even if this is a 100% sure sign that Micheal is anti-GamerGate, I don't care. I still think AirPlay should happen. It's still different than anything that's come before it. It's a live panel with some capable pro-GG people speaking. I think we should try the new thing, rather than just sticking to the same old forums that have been very successfully used against us time and time again. After that debacle, Oliver Campbell set up a YouTube stream with Micheal to try and alleviate some of the community concerns and calls to pull out. There were some trolls in the chat and some people just repeating that we should stop. So I couldn't tell if they had a negative reaction to one of the things that Micheal said that stood out to me. Once again, something that anti and the ignorant have said that's been used to hurt GamerGate and to try and keep people from listening to us, to dismiss us without having to address anything we say. GamerGate has a PR problem. Well, yes, GamerGate does have a PR problem. That's because there's been a concerted push by many people and gaming news sites to create a PR problem for GamerGate. As a community, we've done virtually everything possible that could be done to not have this PR problem, to prove that it's false. Stuff that should at least be acknowledged as they have done X, regardless of the motivations behind it. But those things are left out of the major media narrative. The reason we have a PR problem isn't that anyone can take up the banner of GamerGate or that there are trolls using the name of GamerGate. It's because of how our opponents label things GamerGate. They label everything they don't want people looking at as GamerGate. Then they label everything negative they can possibly find as GamerGate and hold those things up to the public to keep them from seeing the good things, the things that they don't want the public to see. If you inquire about journalistic corruption, you're called GamerGate. If you ever question their narrative, you're called GamerGate. If you have issues with any of them or anyone they support, you are called GamerGate. You spend any time countering or dissecting anything they've said or anyone they support, you're GamerGate. To any of those, they might label you a GamerGate supporter, but it's still the same label. Then there's the other side of the labeling. They call every troll they run across GamerGate. Any harassment they find, they declare it's from GamerGate. Any threat they receive is automatically decried as being from GamerGate. It doesn't need any relation to it. They want it to be from GamerGate. They want everyone to believe that it's from GamerGate. And all they have to do, and all they've always had to do, is make the claim that it's from GamerGate, and we wind up with the burden of proof that it's not, when they should be under the burden of proof that it is. We've actually had one instance of fantasy threats against GamerGate being labeled and misrepresented months later as something that GamerGate had said, that the person who was threatening us was threatening something else under our name. Anything that can be taken out of context and claimed to be any of those things is paraded around as yet another example of GamerGate. Discussion is empowering the hate movement of GamerGate. Questions are empowering the hate movement of GamerGate. The people creating the news and news sites that wanted to vilify GamerGate were used by so many other sites, even mainstream media, as the only sources of news of GamerGate. Even in Wikipedia's case, they wouldn't cite sites that supported or were neutral to GamerGate. The damning narrative was created and spread, and the people who had done it to us said GamerGate has a PR problem. This too easily comes across to us as, we challenge you to prove that we are lying, that what we've said isn't true, when we think they should be the ones that have to prove what they said is true. But GamerGate has a PR problem is a statement that's been used to keep people from listening to us or thinking that we are anything other than a hateful harassment movement. The idea that this type of narrative control could be so successful online or in the US seems like it should be chilling to me. This rings of the horrors I learned studying history as I was growing up. The marginalization of people until society could publicly abuse them, take from them, or kill them, of working nations into war fervors that shook the world. This is one of the reasons I claim the name GamerGate. I think this should be stood up to, even though it's just about video games right now. I'd like to finish by saying that the one thing I dearly hope GamerGate and our supporters can avoid doing is acting like antis. They become unnerved the moment they see something that might be opposition and try and shut it down. They scream and lie and dismiss without taking a moment to hear something they might not like, without giving the thing a second glance. When something upsets you the moment you hear it, especially if it's from someone you don't really know, I ask that you try and take a moment during or even afterwards, if that's the best that you can do, and ask yourself this question: is that the way an anti-GamerGater would act? Let's not let them make us like them in any way. That's all I have to add for now. If you think I've said anything useful, I ask that you pass it along, or better yet, share the video. And as always, thank you for watching.